Hello, my name is John Johnson. I've done a number of YouTube videos on the Catalina boats. I've owned a number of Catalinas over the years. This particular picture is a Catalina 26 Capri wing keel that I owned for about 15 years and loved the boat. It was a fantastic boat. I did a lot of upgrades on that boat. But it eventually got to be just a little bit more than I wanted to set up and take down because all of my boats are trailerable boats. The mast was a little bit heavy and I'm almost 70 and so it was time to downgrade a little bit. That's two more pictures of that boat. So I downgraded to a Catalina 22, 1988 Catalina 22 wing keel. And it was a fantastic boat, and I did a ton of upgrades on that. And there are videos on my website documenting the upgrades to this particular boat. And also did a video on the golden years of Catalina 22, talking about the differences between the older and the new design. They've called this boat the new design. And it was a fantastic boat, and I loved it. I've had three of these boats over the years. But my wife and I spent a lot of time cruising, and it was just a little bit difficult to get in and out of the V-berth, although it was very comfortable when you're in it. And it wasn't large enough to take our grandkids on extended cruises. There's usually 2 or 3 or sometimes 4. So there just wasn't the room. So it became necessary for us to go back up in size again, which is not uncommon. Another picture of that boat. So I found a boat in Colorado this last winter, Catalina 250 wing keel, and I really hesitated to go this route because Catalina's made a lot of changes and their boats look very much like Hunters, a lot more rounded, just not quite as nautical. So I kind of hesitated, but looking and studying more about the boat, I just realized that it had a lot of the features that were just perfect for cruising. So we drove to Colorado and picked this particular boat up, hauled it over the divide and back to Portland, Oregon, or Gresham, Oregon. I'm going to do a video on the upgrades on this boat. The first thing on the Catalina 250 that I noticed, and a lot of boats that I noticed, the manufacturers seem to think that most people are going to spend all their time down sitting around the table, a huge table, eating dinner or talking, and that might be true, but the tables that they put in are so annoying. They're so big, and it makes it so difficult to move around in the cabin and takes up so much room that I just did away with it. I took the table out. The V-berth on this particular boat is a fairly good sized V-berth, but I am 6'2.5", and it just wasn't long enough. And there was wasted space up here. There could have been a shelf there. And the V-berth just wasn't long enough. Our heads hung over the end. So I moved these two pieces back, these two teak pieces back about 2 feet, put in a shelf, a teak shelf, so that we could store things on there. Also, the Catalina 250 is a little bit light in the bow, so it has a tendency to raise in the bow and not sit square on its water line. So a little more weight, any weight that you can add in the bow of these boats is a really good thing. That was the V-berth with an additional 2.5 inches of memory foam on there, but it just was not long enough. So I built an extension on that V-berth that has some storage underneath it out of some good marine plywood. And that's the way that looks now. And put a teak piece here on the front. But anyway, it's worked really well. And I'll show some more pictures of this later. Also, this section here, which goes to the storage in the bow, there was no stiffening board in here, so when you kneeled on that, there was a lot of deflection, and I didn't like that. So I took and put a piece of marine plywood along here, cut these bolts off, and stiffen that, so now that it's nice and stiff, there's no deflection in it when you move forward on it. That's the berth now with the extension on it, and it's worked really, really well. It's very comfortable, easy to get in and out of, nothing in your way. So it's been a great addition. This is what the V berth looks like when that cushion back is in place. When you use the V berth, you just take that off and put it in the back, and then all your bedding and everything can be hidden back here. Also, I found a piece of upholstery foam and covered it with something that kind of matches pretty well. But anyway, so that extends that V berth so that's very comfortable. Added nets here for storage, which is really good. Also found a piece of industrial exterior carpet that had a rubber backing, a hard rubber backing on it, and it's 100% nylon. So this particular carpet you could cut just to fit, and then just go along the edges and lightly burn it with like a little torch that like the chefs use, so that nothing frays on the edges. So that carpet has been really durable. It doesn't allow any moisture to go through it. It dries quickly. It was about $35 for that upgrade. That's the V berth with the bellows and things on it. Another picture of the interior there. Also on this boat, the only line that your anchor went through, and the only cleat to cleat it to was one on either side, and there were just 2 bolts in that. And that little bitty cleat right there, it just, you put a rope through there, and I often anchor where there's a lot of chop, and it's just a great place to chaff your rope, and so I didn't like that. I wanted something a little more robust, because on the Columbia River Gorge, you get into some 30, 40 mile an hour winds, and sometimes that anchor line is really straining. So I put in a stainless steel cleat here in the inside of the anchor well. That's a picture of it there. It has 4 bolts going through that, and then I back that inside with a heavy piece of marine plastic, and so that it strengthened and distribute that load, and it's worked really, really well. Also added a bow roller here, anchor roller here, so that I don't have to go through that, and it's worked really well too. There's been no chaff, and don't have to worry about the anchor in the night when you go to sleep. The hatch board on this particular boat is a marine plastic, and it was really difficult to hold on to because it was slippery. So I just drilled holes and put a little cord on that so you can get it in and out easier. This section, this piece of plastic here on the boat, this picture that you're looking at is double size. I doubled the size of that because you don't want to walk on your plexiglass hatch. You can, it's strong enough, but it scratches it and things. And if you get, some big person up there, it deflects a little bit. So this stiffened up that quite a bit, and it gave me a better place to lock the boat. In the bow of the boat, like I said, because it's so light in the bow, I added this is inside that bow compartment, I added a piece of plywood, and also 2 7-gallon water tanks. And the combination of the water tanks and the water in the plywood here adds about 150 pounds to the front of that boat, and it makes it ride just perfectly on its water line. And it gives you just a teeny bit more speed when you're powering. The water tank on the 250 does not have any way to open it up and clean it, and I noticed just by seeing through there that it had been a while and there was some mildew and things and debris inside the tank. So I cut a hole in the top of the water tank and fixed a hatch cover on that so that I can open that up and drain it, shop back it out, clean it inside with a little bit of bleach and water, so that your water tank is always has nice, clean, drinkable water in it, not just water that you can use for dishes and things. On this particular boat, the previous owner, I think he dropped the mast, or when he was lowering the mast, he probably got away from it and he dropped it, and it put a crack here in the front, which was kind of considerable, but that was the only structural deficiency that I could see in this. So I just took and ground that down, took all the loose stuff out, put in about 7 layers of fiberglass. This is kind of the middle of the process. It went on, there was quite a few, 3 or 4 more layers on that. And then it was all sanded down and buffed and painted with 2-part epoxy so that it matched. Also on this boat, pulled up all of the fittings, cleaned off everything right down to bare concrete, cleaned it with acetone, and then rebedded everything a lot better than it was bedded before. So there's absolutely no leaks anywhere on this boat now. This is the area here that has been repaired. So as you can see, it's pretty, it's a little bit noticeable, but just barely. You'd have to be kind of looking for it. And it's been structurally just fine. On this particular boat, there's a motor mount. This a piece of aluminum wasn't there. This was just the plastic. But this had this I found later, unfortunately, after I got home, that this had been leaking. And what it did is that this is the exterior of the boat, the stern of the boat, transom. This is where your rudder gudgeons bolt. I started looking at this and noticed there was some dark areas that I didn't notice before. So I started chipping away and got a lot of rotted wood out. Fortunately, it stopped before it got to this point. So I took it right down to the bare wood, filled that in with epoxy to make it a little more smoother on the edges, and then put about 6 or 7 layers of fiberglass in there. And it's been just bulletproof ever since. Also, I fixed that leak in that anchor or in the stern motor mount. This was where you store your gas tank, and it was just kind of ugly, so I just painted it with a couple coats of easy epoxy. Then I started working kind of on the exterior of the boat. There were some things that I didn't like. The boat had this ugly, I thought it was ugly, boot stripe here. The other one on the other side was split, you know, just all the way along there. And I didn't like that, so I took it off, stripped it down, cleaned it, and added a different stripe, both here and here, and painted the bottom red. I always like my my boats to be red. They just seemed more traditional. Also repaired some things on the keel there. The trailer had it was a 20-year-old trailer, so the plywood, this is a double layer of plywood in here, started to delaminate. So I replaced that plywood, replaced this wood, finished painting the bottom, and then replaced all the wood, painted it with 2 coats of exterior house paint, and then redid the padding on it. So, and then this extension was bent, so I cut and welded that, and I'll be painting that with galvanizing paint. The motor mount on the 250 just mounts right here. I've added the Catalina motor mount because this particular mount, without the adjustable mount, it didn't allow the motor to spin, so you couldn't spin your boat, you know, in its own length almost. And that's a nice thing to be able to do if you're in a marina and you're going down and all of a sudden you need to, you know, spin around real quick. So I wanted one that would spin around, also one that I could adjust when the waves are really, you know, big and close together so that the motor doesn't cavitate and things. And Catalina makes a great motor mount. So I put on a larger piece of aluminum to distribute that weight and added that motor mount. And it's worked really great. I've been really pleased with it. The previous owner had installed electronics, depth sounders, you know, speedometers, knot meter, that type things up here, but it was all left open here on the back and it's kind of ugly. Didn't like looking at that, so I covered that. These are the pieces here, so I can still get to it if I need to do repairs and things. Also added a area to charge your laptop and your phone and things like that. The electronics on this boat is pretty simple, which is what I like about it. I wanted something that would be really simple to take care of and maintain, just so that it doesn't take so much of my time. Also, the Catalina 22 had a nice swim ladder, but it wasn't the open transom. And when you get to be about 70, it's nice to have the open transom. My wife can get on and off the boat much more easily. So that was also something we were looking for. The Catalina 250 had a solid fixed rudder. This is actually an upgraded rudder that Catalina offers. They said that it would give you better performance. It's about a $2,000 rudder, which is spendy, and it's heavy. And sailing in the Columbia, there's a lot of shallow water. You keep your eye on the depth sounder all the time. So I didn't want a rudder that I could be damaged by hitting the sand. Plus, I don't like going sailing and having my rudder all covered with green algae, and it's just not good for performance. So I installed one of Catalina's kick-up rudders. This has actually been the best of the 3 performing rudders on this boat. The only disadvantage to this is because it's so thick and heavy. When you pull the cord to raise the rudder, it only allows you to raise it to the water. It just wouldn't come up the other way any further. So I had to add an aluminum piece here where I just take the tail end of the jib sheet when the rudder's in the vertical position, throw it around here and pull it right up. So it's been a fantastic rudder. It stays clean. You can go in shallower water without worrying about your rudder bouncing up, and it's been a great performing rudder for the boat. The sail cover on this boat was from, I think, a different boat. It had these clips here with, that clipped it together, and it was too big and it hung down. It would flap in the wind. So this is just a side note. So I just took and cut that down, added those little clips here, and it's now a much better fit, and it doesn't make any noise at night when the wind's blowing. Replaced everything with LED lights, added a spinnaker piece up here at the top of the mast, which Catalina offers, so that you can fly a cruising spinnaker on the boat if you want to. And then just a side note, these were just an area to store your life jackets and some of your things, so that they're not always laying down here on the stern berth and in the way and stuff. That was just a simple little thing, but it made a nice difference. Another little thing that just for hanging your binoculars, which you want to get to, occasionally you just need to check a buoy or something or a number, and it's always nice to have a set of binoculars handy. Also added these little storage areas here for your sheet lines and things so that they're not hanging all over the boat, and found a great little place here to put just this little $200 kayak, which has been a great kayak. It only weighs about 38 pounds. It's easy to carry there, and even when you're sailing, it just stays there really well. Just clips right there and clips right here. It's another view of the little piece there, just a little piece of aluminum that was bent to go in there. That's the LED lights. They're bright, probably a little too bright. And then Catalina makes a nice cover, a really nice cover with screens and things on it for this boat. The nice thing about this over the 22 is that this pop top, it's not really a pop top, but this piece lifts up, and it's so easy whenever you want to just lift that up, and gives you all sorts of headroom down in there. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. This is the boat on the water. Another view of the boat. We always carry a hot water shower up here, so in the evenings we can hang that from the boom and have a nice. This is about a 5 or 6 gallon. It'll give 2 people a really nice warm shower in the evening if you use it within about 20 minutes after the sun goes down. Another view of the boat there. It's a good sailing boat. The quality is still great, Catalina quality. I noticed the headliner, the liner inside might be a little bit thinner than the 88 Catalina 22, their new design. But overall, it's kind of growing on me, but it's not as pretty a boat as the Catalina 22 or some of the other Catalinas. It's just more rounded and more hunter looking, but it's growing on me. Also, this boat has a lot more freeboard here. So I've noticed in high winds up in the gorge, it's a little bit more squirrely. You got to be a little better at keeping control of it, because there is a lot of end docking and things. There is quite a bit of windage on that much haul out of the water. And this is just the boat here on an island just across from actually the airport in Portland. This will give you a little view of the boat. It's sitting pretty nicely on its waterline. And this will take you back along the stern. There's the pop top when it's up, the forward hatch when it's up. The mast is a little bit lighter than on the Catalina 26. I can handle it, carry it myself. It's really nice. It's kind of nice too. The kids really like these seats, stern seats there, padded stern seats. And that's that's not the kick-up rudder. That's been replaced after this picture, but that's pretty much the boat. So it's a great boat. The 250 is a nice boat. I really, really like it. And there's just it's just perfect for what we're doing. So I hope that helped you out if you're ever considering that boat. So great sailing.